Okay, so here it goes. I'm not sure if I'm completely losing my mind or if this situation is as bad as I think it is, but I need to ask Reddit for some guidance. I, 27M, ended my 2-year relationship with my girlfriend Nia, 25F, after I found out that she had been cheating on me with my dad, 52M. Yes, you read that correctly, my dad. I can't even begin to explain how utterly devastating this situation has been, but some of my friends and even a few family members are saying that I might have overreacted. So Reddit, I'm hoping you can help me figure out if I'm the asshole in all of this. Let me try to explain everything from the start, as this entire thing has been such a whirlwind, and I'm still processing what happened. Nia and I met about 3 years ago at a mutual friend's birthday party. She was funny, outgoing, and ridiculously attractive. I was immediately drawn to her, and we hit it off within the first hour of meeting. Our chemistry was undeniable, and after that night we started hanging out more and more, going on dates and eventually becoming a couple. It didn't take long before we were talking about living together, and after about a year of dating, we took the plunge and moved in together. Things were going great. Well, at least that's what I thought. We had our usual disagreements, but nothing major. We'd fight, we'd talk it out, and we'd move on. For the most part, I was really happy. Nia was amazing in so many ways. She was thoughtful, supportive, and caring. We had a lot of fun together and everything seemed perfect. On the flip side, my relationship with my dad has always been complicated. My parents divorced when I was 12 because my dad had been cheating on my mom for years. My mom gave him so many chances to change, but in the end, she couldn't keep tolerating it. My dad's a smooth talker, always has been, but I've never been able to fully forgive him for what he did to my mom. After the divorce, we stayed in touch, but I never got particularly close to him. I still respected him as my father, but I never forgot the way he treated my mom. Growing up, I always made it clear to my dad that I didn't want to be involved in his drama. I wanted to focus on my own life, and I didn't need his mess to drag me down. Sure, we'd chat here and there, but that was the extent of our relationship. I'd see him at family events or holidays, but I always kept my distance. In the back of my mind, I still saw him as that man who betrayed my mom, and I wasn't sure if I could ever see him as anything more than a distant relative. But despite everything, I always tried to give him a chance. He was still my dad after all, and I figured I should at least be civil with him, even if I didn't fully trust him. About a month ago, things with Nia started feeling off. Nothing major at first, just small changes. She'd get quieter, more distant. She started canceling plans, not showing up to things we'd scheduled together, and being unusually protective of her phone. I'm a pretty chill guy, so at first I brushed it off. Maybe she was just stressed out, or maybe something was going on in her personal life. But then it started to get worse. One day I found a message on her phone while we were hanging out. It wasn't anything too crazy, just a couple of texts from a guy she knew from work. But it didn't sit right with me. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I didn't say anything at first. But the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She wasn't being upfront with me about things. She'd claim she was out with friends, but when I asked her about it later, the stories didn't quite add up. Then I found out she'd been hanging out with my dad more. She said it was just for dinner or to talk about family stuff, but something about it felt off. Why was she suddenly so close to him? She'd never mentioned it before, and when I asked her about it, she'd laugh it off, saying it was just nothing. But the more I thought about it, the more uneasy I became. I tried to ignore it. I didn't want to become one of those paranoid, jealous boyfriends. I had been burned by insecurity in the past, and I didn't want to let my fears get the best of me. But the feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. Something was happening behind my back and I could feel it. Things came to a head one night when Nia and I were supposed to go out for a dinner date. We'd been planning this night for a while, and I was really looking forward to spending quality time together. But that afternoon, she texted me saying she wasn't feeling well and wanted to cancel. I didn't think much of it at first, but when I checked my phone a few hours later, I saw a message from a friend saying they saw Nia at a coffee shop on the other side of town. I didn't know why, but something inside me snapped. I couldn't help it. I texted her asking if she was really at home like she said, or if she was lying to me. She replied, saying she just needed some time alone and went out for a walk. But my friend's text didn't match up with her story, and that's when I started putting the pieces together. She had lied to me, and the gut feeling I'd been ignoring was finally confirmed. That night, I waited until she was asleep and went through her phone. I know. I shouldn't have done it. I should have talked to her first, but I was desperate to know what was really going on. And what I found crushed me. There were dozens of texts, explicit messages, and even pictures exchanged between her and my dad. They'd been having an affair for months. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through their conversations. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My heart was racing and I felt like I was going to be sick. There was no way this was real. But the evidence was right there in front of me. My own girlfriend, the woman I trusted with my whole heart, had been sleeping with my dad. How could this happen? How could I not see it? The next morning, I confronted Nia. She was still in bed, but I couldn't hold it in any longer. I showed her the messages, the photos, and everything I had found. She tried to deny it at first, saying it was just a one-time mistake, and that she had never meant for it to go this far. But as I kept pressing her, she finally admitted to everything. She said she didn't know how it happened but that it just did, and that she loved me and didn't want to lose me. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. I kept looking at her, trying to find any trace of the woman I thought I knew, but all I saw was a stranger. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this? How could she do it with my own dad? It was too much to comprehend. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But I didn't do anything. I just stood there frozen. I told her I needed space and left the apartment. I didn't want to see her anymore. I couldn't look at her without feeling disgusted. When I called my dad, he didn't even apologize. He laughed it off, saying, "I was wondering when you'd find out." He didn't seem sorry at all. He even went so far as to tell me I was overreacting and that it was just a fling. He claimed it meant nothing and that I was blowing everything out of proportion. But I knew what was going on. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal on every level. I didn't know what to say. My dad, the man who had always been a part of my life, had just shattered everything. He had crossed a line that I couldn't even begin to understand. How could he do this? To me? To his own son? I stopped answering his calls. I blocked his number. I couldn't deal with him anymore. This wasn't something I could ever forgive. After a week of constant emotional turmoil, I made the decision to end things with Nia. I told her it was over, that I couldn't be with someone who would betray me like that. She begged me to reconsider, said it was a mistake, but I couldn't do it. The trust was gone. There was no way to fix it. I moved out of the apartment and have been staying with a friend since. It's been a few weeks now and I'm still processing everything. My family is split on this. Some of them say I should try to forgive Nia and work it out, while others are siding with me, saying that there's no coming back from this level of betrayal. I keep thinking about what I could have done differently. Maybe I should have seen the signs earlier. Maybe I should have confronted her sooner. Maybe I could have saved this relationship. But in my heart, I know that this is something I can't forgive. Not with my dad. Not with the woman I loved. So, Reddit, AITA for leaving Nia after she cheated on me with my dad? Should I have tried harder to make it work, or was walking away the only option?
AITA for blocking my cousin after she posted our private messages on Facebook? Hey Reddit, I need some serious advice about a complete shitshow that's unfolded in my life recently. So here's the deal. I'm Steve, 24M, and I've got this cousin, Amanda, 23F. We've always been super close. Think family BBQs, game nights, and all that good shit. Our families have been tight for as long as I can remember. We've had a bit of a flirty vibe, teasing here and there, but it never crossed a line, you know? At least not until about 6 months ago. So here's how it all started. It was a hot summer night at our annual family reunion. Everyone was gathered around the fire pit, drinking beers, laughing and reminiscing about old times. I was having a blast, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Amanda kept stealing glances my way. I'd catch her looking at me, and when our eyes met, she'd give me that little smirk. One that made my heart race like a fucking freight train. As the night went on and the drinks kept flowing, the group started getting a little too loose. At some point, Amanda and I ended up stepping away from the crowd to find a quieter spot in the backyard. We plopped ourselves down on a swing set, reminiscing about our childhood and all those late-night adventures we had sneaking out to explore the neighborhood. But man, there was something in the air that night. Maybe it was the booze or just the nostalgia. But the tension between us was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Out of nowhere, she leaned in and kissed me. It was unexpected, but it felt electric. I pulled back, wide-eyed, and we both just stared at each other for a moment. Then, we burst out laughing, like we couldn't believe what just happened. But the laughter quickly faded, and I found myself leaning in again, this time deeper. It felt wild and freeing, like we were breaking some unspoken rule, and it turned me on more than I care to admit. That kiss opened the floodgates. We ended up sneaking off to my car and making out like crazy, our hands roaming everywhere. I don't know how long we were there, but it felt like time had stopped. It was exhilarating, and when we finally pulled away, breathless and grinning like idiots, we both knew something had changed between us. From that night forward, we couldn't stop thinking about each other. Our texts quickly went from friendly banter to something way more charged. We'd text each other late into the night, sharing our thoughts, our dreams, and our fucking desires. It felt like we had this secret world of our own, one where we could be totally free and uninhibited. Before long, we were sneaking around, hooking up whenever we could. We'd meet at her place when our parents were out, and let me tell you, it was some of the best sex I've ever had. Seriously, we were both young and passionate, and it felt like we were exploring every inch of each other's bodies. We'd try new shit, laugh about our awkward moments, and just enjoy being in the moment. It was thrilling, and it felt like we were living in this crazy, exhilarating bubble. But here's the thing, we both knew it was a bit taboo. We had this unspoken agreement that we'd keep it on the down low. I mean, it's not every day you hook up with your cousin, right? We were both aware of the potential fallout if anyone ever found out, but that only added to the excitement. We'd joke about how we'd have to keep our heads down at family gatherings, avoiding any awkward questions. For a few months, everything was awesome. Our texts were filled with flirty messages, dirty jokes, and some steamy details about our encounters. We were both down for it, but I could feel those nerves creeping in about how this could blow up in our faces at any moment. I didn't want to ruin what we had, so I kept my mouth shut and pretended it was all chill. But then, last week, everything went to hell. I woke up one morning to my phone blowing up with notifications. Amanda had posted screenshots of our private messages on Facebook. My heart fucking dropped. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I was reading through the comments. People were laughing, some were shocked, and others were just outright confused. I was ready to crawl into a hole and die. The messages included some pretty explicit shit about our hookups, things that were supposed to be between us. I felt utterly betrayed. I couldn't believe she'd share something so personal with the whole damn world. I immediately shot her a message, like, "What the fuck? Amanda? Take this shit down." Instead of apologizing, she just laughed it off. She said it was just for fun and that I was being too uptight. I snapped. I told her she was a fucking idiot for doing that and that she had no respect for my privacy. I was so pissed off that I decided to block her on all social media platforms. In that moment, I felt like I had to protect myself from this betrayal. After blocking her, I felt a mix of relief and guilt. I mean, she's family, but I was so damn angry. I spent the next few days in a state of confusion. Was I overreacting? Did I make the right choice? I couldn't stop thinking about how this would blow up at family gatherings. Would I have to face her at Christmas dinner? Would my parents think I was the one in the wrong? I talked to some friends about it, and they mostly sided with me. They were like, "Dude, she totally crossed a line." But there were a couple of friends who said blocking her might be too extreme. They suggested I should have an honest conversation instead of cutting her off completely. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. It wasn't just about the messages being shared. It was about the trust we had built. The fact that she took something intimate and turned it into a public spectacle was beyond disrespectful. I could already imagine the awkward glances at family dinners and the whispers behind my back. The anxiety started getting to me. I thought about how I'd need to explain this to my parents. They loved Amanda and would be disappointed in her behavior for sure. Would they take her side? Would they understand my perspective? I didn't want to cause family drama, but I also didn't want to be the subject of gossip. A few days later, I decided to reach out to a mutual friend who knew about our situation. I needed to vent. When I explained what happened, he was shocked. He couldn't believe she would pull something like that, especially knowing how close our families were. He urged me to reconsider the blocking thing and think about having a real conversation with her. That conversation stuck with me. I realized that while my feelings were valid, blocking her might have been a hasty reaction. I thought about how I had been avoiding the conversation because I was scared, but maybe it was time to face it. I didn't want to live in anger or resentment. I wanted to reclaim my peace. After a lot of back and forth in my head, I decided to reach out to her again. I sent her a message, expressing that I was hurt and confused but open to talking. To my surprise, she responded quickly, saying she was down to meet up for coffee. I was nervous but hopeful that we could sort this shit out. When we finally met up, the atmosphere was tense as hell. I could feel the weight of everything hanging in the air. We ordered our drinks, and I took a deep breath. I started off by telling her how I felt when I saw the post. I explained that it wasn't just about the messages being shared. It was about trust and respect. I told her that I considered her a confidant, and what she did felt like a total betrayal. To my surprise, she actually listened. She didn't interrupt, and I could see the realization hit her. When I finished, she apologized. She explained she thought it would be funny and never considered how it would hurt me. Hearing her say that felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. We talked for a while about our feelings and the complications of our relationship. I expressed my concerns about how this could impact our families, and she agreed to take the post down. She promised to respect my boundaries moving forward. We both acknowledged that what we had was special, but it also needed to be handled with care. By the time we left, I felt a sense of relief. I realized that while blocking her might have felt justified, having a real conversation was the way to go. We both agreed to be more transparent moving forward, and it felt like we were able to salvage our relationship. Now, as I reflect on everything, I'm still torn. Did I overreact when I blocked her? Was I justified in feeling betrayed and angry? I learned that communication is key in any relationship, no matter how complicated it may be. So, Reddit, AITA for blocking my cousin after she posted our private messages on Facebook? Should I have handled it differently? I genuinely want to know if I'm being unreasonable in this situation or if my feelings are valid. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for reading.
AITA for punching my best friend for flirting with my girlfriend? Okay, so this is going to be a long one, but I want to give as much context as possible to get a fair judgment. I'll start from the beginning. I, 25M, have been dating Elena, 24F, for about 3 years. She's amazing, smart, funny, and the kind of person who lights up a room just by walking into it. Everyone loves her, including my best friend, Mike, 26M. Mike and I have been friends since high school. He's always been the life of the party, the guy who makes everyone laugh, and someone I thought I could trust completely. That trust was put to the test recently, and I don't know if I handled things the right way. A couple of weeks ago, Elena and I decided to host a small get-together at our place. We invited a few close friends, including Mike. It was supposed to be a chill evening with drinks, music, and good company. Things started off great, everyone was having a good time, and the vibe was perfect. But then I noticed something that made my stomach turn. Mike was being overly friendly with Elena. At first, I brushed it off as him just being his usual charming self. But as the night went on, it became harder to ignore. He kept finding excuses to be near her, laughing a little too hard at her jokes, and touching her arm or shoulder whenever he spoke to her. Elena didn't seem to notice anything unusual. She's naturally friendly and assumes the best in people. But I could see it. The way Mike looked at her wasn't just friendly, it was something else entirely. I tried to keep my cool. I didn't want to make a scene, especially not in front of our friends. But as the night went on, Mike's behavior became more blatant. At one point, he leaned in way too close to Elena while she was pouring herself a drink and whispered something that made her laugh. I didn't catch what he said, but the sight of them together like that made my blood boil. I decided to confront him privately. I pulled Mike aside into the kitchen and asked him what the hell he was doing. At first, he played dumb, acting like he didn't know what I was talking about. But when I pressed him, he smirked and said, "Relax, man. I'm just having a little fun. No harm in that, right?" That response sent me over the edge. I told him to back off and reminded him that Elena was my girlfriend, not some random girl he could flirt with. He rolled his eyes and said, "Fine, whatever. You're overreacting." I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. Later that evening, I caught Mike trying to dance with Elena in a way that was way too close for comfort. That's when I lost it. I walked up to him, grabbed his arm, and told him to leave. He laughed and said, "What's your problem?" "Can't handle a little competition." Something in me snapped. Without thinking, I punched him. Hard. Right in the jaw. The room went silent. Everyone stared at us in shock as Mike stumbled back, clutching his face. Elena ran over and pulled me away, demanding to know what was going on. I told her everything, how Mike had been flirting with her all night and how he dismissed my earlier warning. She looked stunned but didn't say much in the moment. Mike, on the other hand, was furious. He called me a psycho and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. After he left, the party fizzled out. Our friends left soon after, and it was just me and Elena. She sat me down and said, "I appreciate you standing up for me, but was punching him really necessary?" I tried to explain how disrespected I felt, not just by Mike's actions, but by his attitude when I confronted him. She nodded but said, "You could have handled it differently. Violence isn't the answer." Over the next few days, I started getting messages from mutual friends. Some said I was justified in standing up for myself and Elena, while others said I overreacted and should apologize to Mike. Even Mike sent me a message, accusing me of ruining our friendship over nothing. He claimed he wasn't flirting and that I'd misinterpreted his actions. But I know what I saw, and I know how it made me feel. This whole situation has left me feeling conflicted. On one hand, I don't regret standing up for Elena. She's my girlfriend, and it's my job to protect her from people who disrespect her or our relationship. But on the other hand, I can't help but wonder if I took things too far. Should I have handled it differently? Was punching Mike really the best way to deal with the situation? Elena has been supportive, but I can tell she's still processing everything. She suggested that I talk to Mike and try to resolve things, but I don't know if I can. How do you rebuild trust with someone who disrespected you like that? And even if I could forgive him, would I ever feel comfortable having him around Elena again? Probably not. So, Reddit, I need your judgment. AITA for punching my best friend for flirting with my girlfriend? Should I have handled things differently? Or was I justified in standing up for myself and my relationship? I'm open to hearing your thoughts because, honestly, I'm feeling pretty lost right now. Edit 1. Additional context. I've seen a lot of comments asking about Mike's behavior in the past, so I want to clarify a few things. This isn't the first time he's crossed a line, but it's definitely the most blatant. Over the years, there have been little things, comments about how lucky I am to have Elena, jokingly asking if she has a sister, stuff like that. I always brushed it off because I didn't think he'd actually try anything. I guess I was wrong. As for Elena, she's been amazing through all of this. She told me she didn't notice Mike's behavior at first but started to pick up on it as the night went on. She said she felt uncomfortable but didn't want to make a scene. I don't blame her for that. It's a tough position to be in. She's also reassured me that she's 100% committed to our relationship and has no interest in Mike whatsoever. That's been a huge relief. Edit 2. Moving forward. I've decided to reach out to Mike for a conversation. Not because I want to rekindle our friendship, but because I think it's important to set boundaries and get closure. I'm not expecting an apology, but I need to make it clear that his behavior was unacceptable and that there's no place for him in my life if he can't respect me or my relationship. Additional update, the talk with Mike. So I had the conversation with Mike, and it was tense to say the least. I started by explaining how his behavior that night made me feel. I told him that, as my best friend, I expected him to respect me and my relationship with Elena. At first, he was defensive. He claimed he didn't mean any harm and that I'd overreacted. I stood my ground and said, intent doesn't erase the impact. What you did hurt me, and it hurt Elena. Eventually, Mike admitted that he might have crossed a line but stopped short of giving a full apology. He said, "Look, I didn't think it was a big deal. Maybe I was out of line, but I never meant to hurt you." It wasn't exactly the heartfelt apology I was hoping for, but at least he acknowledged some responsibility. I told him that while I appreciated his honesty, I needed some time to figure out where we stand as friends. As for Elena, she's proud of me for handling the conversation maturely, but she's also made it clear that she doesn't want Mike around anymore. And honestly, I can't blame her. Trust is hard to rebuild, especially when it's been broken in such a personal way. Final thoughts. I've decided to take a step back from my friendship with Mike. Maybe we'll find a way to mend things in the future, but for now, I need to prioritize my relationship with Elena and my own mental health. This whole ordeal has been a wake-up call about boundaries and respect. It's been painful, but I'm hopeful that it'll lead to stronger, healthier relationships in the long run. Looking back, I think this situation has taught me a lot about communication and trust. Elena and I have had deeper conversations about how we can handle similar situations in the future. We've also discussed boundaries with friends and what makes us both comfortable. It's been a learning curve, but I feel like we're coming out of this stronger than before. To anyone else who's been in a similar situation, I'd love to hear how you handled it. Did you confront the friend? Did it ruin the friendship? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed the story, make sure to like and subscribe, please.
AITA for blocking my ex on social media after she posted about our breakup? So, here's the deal. After my breakup with Sasha, I was trying to keep things as calm as possible. No drama, no bad vibes, just trying to move on quietly. I thought I could be the bigger person, take the high road, and just let everything fade into the background. But then, of course, Sasha decided to post about it on social media. And not just a vague, sad day kind of post, no, this was a full-blown breakup saga, complete with her own dramatic spin on what went down. I saw it, and honestly, it felt like someone punched me in the gut. She basically painted herself as the victim and me as the villain in our breakup story.
It was a mix of passive-aggressive memes, cryptic posts, and vague rants about how some people just don't appreciate you until it's too late. You get the picture. I was furious but also completely blindsided. I thought we were moving on in a mature way, and then this. It felt like a betrayal. Like she was dragging all our issues out into the open for everyone to see. And the worst part? She was framing everything in a way that made her look like the saint and me like the villain. I don't know about you, but I hate drama. I absolutely detest it. So, I blocked her almost instantly. I didn't even think about it for too long. My thought process was, I don't need this in my life. Nope. Bye. It wasn't about being spiteful, it was just about protecting myself from the emotional garbage that came with seeing her posts. I figured if I blocked her, I could avoid the constant reminders of what went wrong, avoid hearing her version of events, and move on in peace. But, of course, the drama didn't stop there. My phone started blowing up. Mutual friends started texting, calling, and asking, "Hey, why'd you block Sasha?" It didn't stop with just one or two messages. It was constant. I started hearing things like, "She thinks you're being immature, you should have just muted her, not blocked her, and she wants to know why you're erasing her from your life." I was like, really? Seriously? I'm just trying to protect my mental space, and now I'm the bad guy? It's not like I blocked her out of spite or anything. Seeing her posts, her version of our breakup, was just too much for me. I didn't want to deal with that every time I opened my feed. It felt like I was being dragged back into the drama, over and over again, every time I scrolled through social media. I felt like I had to choose between my mental health and what other people might think of me. And, honestly, my mental health won. At first, blocking her felt like a win. My feed was peaceful again. No more reminders of what went wrong, no more passive-aggressive memes, and no more cryptic posts that might or might not have been about me. It felt like I had taken back control over my social media and, by extension, my life. I was in charge of what I wanted to see, and I didn't want to see that anymore. But then came the guilt. The guilt was immediate. I started second-guessing myself. Was I being too harsh? Should I have just muted her instead of blocking her? Should I have just ignored it and moved on without making it so obvious that I was hurt? Did blocking her make me look bad? Maybe she was right, and I was just being dramatic. The guilt only got worse when mutual friends started taking sides. Some thought I was justified, saying things like, "She's the one airing dirty laundry in public, you have every right to block her." Others weren't so kind. One friend even told me that blocking her made it seem like I was still hung up on her. Like, come on. What kind of logic is that? So, if I block someone, it means I'm still hung up on them? I just couldn't win, could I? But here's the thing, it wasn't just about that one post. It wasn't just about the public airing of our breakup. It was about everything that post represented. It wasn't just, "Here's my side of the breakup." It was like she was using social media to keep this invisible thread tied between us, and I needed to cut that thread for my own sanity. I didn't want to be constantly reminded of her and our relationship in the digital space. I needed real space to process everything, to move on, and to heal. Blocking her was my way of taking back control over my life. Was it petty? Maybe. But, honestly, it felt necessary. Of course, blocking someone in the digital age is like throwing a rock into a pond. The ripples are unavoidable. Even after I blocked her, I couldn't completely escape the drama. Mutual friends would screenshot her posts and send them to me, saying things like, "Wow, look what she said now." I was like, why? I blocked her so I wouldn't have to see this stuff. Stop dragging me back into it. One post in particular really got under my skin. It was this long, rambling caption about how some people can't handle the truth and how breakups show you who people really are. It was basically a thinly veiled attack on me, and the comments? Oh, the comments. "You're better off without him. You deserve so much better." And my personal favorite, "Wow, he sounds so toxic." I wanted to scream, "You don't even know me." But, of course, I stayed quiet. What was the point? If I replied, I'd just be feeding the drama and making it worse. Blocking her wasn't the end of the story, though. It made me think a lot about boundaries. I used to think blocking someone was extreme, like a last resort. But now I see it differently. Sometimes, it's not about them at all. It's about you, what you need to heal and move forward. Blocking Sasha wasn't about punishing her, it was about protecting myself. It was about setting a boundary that said, "I'm done with this chapter. I'm moving on, and I don't need this negativity in my life anymore." And you know what? That's okay, right? The hardest part was dealing with the mutual friends. Some of them were totally supportive, saying things like, "You have to do what's best for you." Others weren't so kind. "It's just social media," they'd say. "Why can't you just be the bigger person?" Bigger person? Really? Since when does being the bigger person mean putting up with nonsense that hurts you? Being the bigger person doesn't mean swallowing your feelings just to appease others. It means setting boundaries and respecting your own well-being. Eventually, things started to die down. The mutual friend stopped bringing it up, and Sasha moved on to posting about other things. But every now and then, I'd hear something through the grapevine. Oh, she's dating someone new. She posted this sad song lyric the other day. It's like, even when you block someone, they're never completely gone. Social media makes it impossible to fully let go. Every now and then, a little piece of gossip would reach me. It's like being in a room where you're trying to ignore the noise, but it's still there, in the background, buzzing. Looking back, I don't regret blocking her. Sure, it was messy, and it definitely came with its share of drama, but it was what I needed to do. Sometimes, you have to choose yourself, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. Blocking Sasha wasn't about being petty or immature. It wasn't about punishing her for the breakup or trying to control her. It was about setting a boundary and saying, I'm done with this. And honestly, it felt pretty damn good. But here's where things get interesting. Blocking Sasha wasn't the end of the story. A few weeks after I blocked her, I got an unexpected call from one of her friends, someone I'd barely spoken to before. She said Sasha was really upset and felt like I was erasing her from my life. She even accused me of winning the breakup by blocking her first. Like, what does that even mean? How do you win a breakup? I didn't realize it was a competition. But, honestly, I had to laugh at that one. Who wins a breakup? It's not a game. It's just two people moving on from each other. There's no winner here. This whole idea of winning the breakup stuck with me, though. I started to wonder if maybe Sasha saw the block as a power move. Like I was trying to hurt her or prove something. But that couldn't have been further from the truth. I wasn't trying to win anything. I was just trying to move on without the constant reminder of what went wrong. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how twisted the whole situation was. Social media turns everything into a performance, even breakups. It also made me reflect on our relationship. Sasha was always big on appearances, always curating the perfect image online. It wasn't just about posting pictures or sharing moments, it was about controlling the narrative. I think that's why her breakup post bothered me so much. It felt like she was still trying to control the story, even after we were over. Blocking her wasn't just about protecting my mental health. It was about breaking free from that control. It was about saying, I'm no longer part of your performance. Still, I couldn't help but feel a little bad. Not for blocking her, I stand by that decision, but for how things ended up. Sasha and I had some good times together, and I didn't want our breakup to define everything. But when someone uses social media to air their grievances, it's hard to remember the good stuff. It all gets overshadowed by the drama and the public spectacle. As time went on, I started to feel more at peace with my decision. I realized that blocking Sasha wasn't just about her. It was about me, taking back my power, setting boundaries, and prioritizing my well-being. It wasn't an easy choice, but it was the right one. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd block her in a heartbeat. And I'd do it with no regrets. So, AITA? Maybe some people will think so. Maybe they'll think I should have been the bigger person or that I should have handled the situation differently. But at the end of the day, I'd rather be the asshole who blocked my ex than the person who's stuck reliving a breakup every time they open their phone. I chose my peace, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.